Well, great. Now that we're just a minute past the hour, I just want to confirm that I'm actually sharing a screen here with the PowerPoint slide on it. Should see a couple happy faces there. So that's great.
You
I
are.
want to say welcome to all of you from the Tableau users group, the group that really is us. I mean, it's your group, it's our group, it's something that we all kind of create together, which is really great and a great way to network and share ideas and learn. We've got a pretty exciting agenda today. We're going to talk about the Tableau conference and recap what happened there from some people who were able to attend either in person or virtually. And then we've got some great presentations on performance tuning, utilizing DataFam, Workout Wednesday, and then we'll wrap up with some giveaways and some quick breakout rooms just so we can do a little networking with the goal of long-term being able to network in person again, because I think that's one of the great advantages we have with our local group is being able to actually talk to people and ask questions one-on-one, which really helps. So without a whole lot further introduction, I'm going to turn things over to Derek, Luke, and Olivia. We're going to talk about the Tableau conference and what they learned.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Just a warning, we didn't actually discuss how we were going to do this beforehand, so this is all happening on the fly. I'm Derek Alsup. I'm an analytics analyst with American Family. I will caution you, though, that any opinion that I share in the next few minutes are entirely my own and have nothing to do with American Family.
Yeah, and my name is Luke Komiskey. Will be presenting here shortly, so I'll get more into my background. But I had the chance to attend in person. This was my 5th or 6th Tableau conference that I've attended. Definitely on the smaller side, but excited to share a little bit more about sessions and learnings from that. But I'll pass it off to Olivia quick.
Hey, everybody. My name is Olivia Butler. I'm the data management liaison for the state of Wisconsin Department of Health Services. And I'm also one of your Madison TUG leaders. So I have been to 3 Tableau conferences, but the last 2 have been virtual. And I'm going to be talking about some of my favorite pieces from the virtual side and the presentations and where you can get a link to the recordings, which I will be putting in chat here shortly. Derek, Luke, who wants to kick us off?
Sounds like Luke has something to get us started. Let's go.
Yeah, I can see where the conversation takes us. So yeah, having this be my 5th or 6th conference in person, I tend to not go to as many sessions nowadays and just try to catch up with people that I see in the community. I think some of the biggest benefits of going to these things in person is still just being able to randomly meet people, but then meet a lot of people that you see on the social media and only really get to interact once a year. So Tableau did a really good job of putting together quite a few gatherings, community parties and stuff just to get similar minded people together and talk about the cool things that they're doing. And it's just a really great way to get energy out of it. This time around, the Tableau conference last time it was in person was 15 or 16,000 people. And this time was around 4,000 or 5,000. So it was actually nice to get back to a time when you could actually run into somebody more than once and be able to kick up new conversations, which was great. Yeah, and I've got other thoughts around my favorite session or favorite features, but maybe I'll keep it on the topic of attendance. And I don't know if you guys have thoughts on virtual attendance.
I have to admit, I'm an introvert. I like this virtual world we're moving into. It was really nice for me. I had some work obligations, so I appreciate being able to choose and join sessions when I can and pick up the recordings for anything that I have to skip out on. But I will be honest, my first conference was in person at TC17. And while it was emotionally a bit turbulent at that conference, it was a completely different experience being in Vegas at Mandalay Bay with the crowds of people around you than it is doing the virtual session. So I tried to bring, I told the Tableau folks, I tried to bring Vegas to my house. It didn't work quite as well as I thought it was going to. But we tried to replicate that party environment a little bit and, project the sessions up on my TV and make it a little bit more all immersive using the technology I had available to me. What about you, Derek?
Yeah, so it was my 3rd in-person conference, so I think my 5th overall. It was my first conference that I presented at. which was a great experience for a lot of reasons. Talking to a room full of people was really exciting. I really enjoyed the Q&A. And you could tell, in my opinion, that how scaled down this was. There were still 4,000 or 5,000 people, which is a lot of people, but compared to, a fully packed house, it was different. One thing I noticed about the sessions is that previously Tableau Conference was great for learning new skills and learning what's coming up in future releases. This one was a sales pitch. Like every single session that was hosted by Tableau was them selling to you. I get it, they have products to sell, but it was a little light on actionable content to me, unless you're the person writing checks. And if you have really been screaming for new services to subscribe to, boy, oh boy, are you in for a treat. I think, well, we can maybe save that for later. I thought it was kind of a theme with the virtual too. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I'd echo that as well. Like I hung out mostly in Data Village, and usually I use that as a chance just to see other vendors and stuff that are out there. But Data Village was really just all like Salesforce add-ons and stuff. So it's definitely a different theme to it. And why I didn't go to too many sessions, and the ones that the one that I'm going to be highlighting is just the one I went to at the Flairledge Twins for how to do cool stuff with Tableau, just because it was live Tableau work and actionable advice. So yeah, I definitely felt that same theme.
Yeah. So will you go back? If this is the way that future conferences are going to be run, will you go back? Either of you, any of you?
I think it's hard for me because at the state, we generally don't have very much control over procurement. And everything's in the shared services model. So a lot of the, as you all mentioned, a lot of the sales pitches and demos are very applicable to me. I can't really do much about them. But I think that, I kind of got the impression, at least personally, that they were kind of setting up this idea of like this integrated 360 CRM type integration. So I'm kind of hoping that the conference materials go back more to the technical and the actual implementation. They've just, with the merger of Salesforce, I just personally got the impression that they had a lot of new things they wanted to talk about and a lot of new things that are coming. And I'm hoping that once those things do hit the market, do hit the shelves, that we're going to get a lot more technical content at future presentations because of that. There's going to be a lot more of how to use these tools that they're talking about at the virtual meeting. I don't disagree with anything you all said at all. I very much, how do I practically take what you're telling me and use it at my day-to-day to make my life easier? But I think that I'm just kind of hopeful. I think I will go back for sure. I'm just hopeful that, now that we've launched this new ecosystem of products, we can start digging into how we're going to use them, how they're going to be effective in our day-to-day.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think like a lot of the sessions that were a lot more hands-on, technical, community-led, they actually had to do 2 versions of it just because those were the sessions that were filling up, and it was the content that people wanted. So I put in the link on there. One of my favorite sessions, one of the few I went to, Flairledge Twins. I'm sure if you guys are in the community in any way, shape, or form, you've heard of these guys, but I don't think there's a recording of this presentation, unfortunately, but they do have their entire presentation that you can reverse engineer. But really over the course of 45, 50 minutes, they went over 4 really cool concepts that do kind of like have a lot layers of complexity to it. So even if you're a beginner, you can just check to see how they're building these cool visualizations. And I even I've used Tableau for 10 plus years, and I still took away a few just like new little pieces of functionality or drop downs that I never take advantage of. So I'd highly encourage you to check out the presentation, and then I read on their blog here that they're going to be presenting it at other Tableau user groups. So I'd highly encourage just trying to track that down because it was well worth the time.
Yeah. So Jen asked if more sessions were being led by Salesforce / Tableau or other users. And it seemed to me like it was mostly Salesforce. I could be wrong. Maybe that's just the ones I was drawn to.
Yeah. Or just like business cases, right? Like
Yeah.
It's like Salesforce or Tableau plus like a successful customer that's talking like super high level about the success of the deployment, which is great, but not terribly meaty in the weeds.
That's exactly what mine was like. But I agree with Jen's comment that those do tend to be the best presentations. If you or your organization is starting the Tableau program, or maybe you want to do more internal training, there's one I would recommend called How to Implement Your Own Internal Tableau Training Program. It was great. It was put on by someone from JP Morgan Chase. They actually did the same presentation in Vegas in 2019, and it was still good. I think they had intended to publish the content that they use in their training in Tableau Public, so maybe keep an eye out for that too.
Yeah, and I personally really liked the Duke Health presentation on, and let me trying to get back. It was Why IT Matters, Rooting Data Culture and Data Ethos. And they do a really good job of talking you through how to design and build effective dashboards. We all kind of have this in our head, but I liked the way that they laid it out and organized it. It made a lot of sense logically to me. And I'll be honest, I know we were just kind of riffing a little bit on the sales pitches that we experienced, but I am literally dancing around excited about data stories because I have been dealing with a lot of accessibility challenges at the state. We're statutorily obligated to provide data to our public, and that doesn't mean just the public that don't have vision impairments. And so, the use of assistive devices in Tableau has been an ongoing challenge with me in dealing with the hierarchies and getting the screen readers to read the appropriate element and dealing with data downloads. And if you all are like us and you've got 4 or 5 dashboards in the same location, it gets even harder for assistive devices to find that content and navigate through the page. So I'm obsessed. We saw, several years ago now at the Madison Hug Narrative Science came to present. So they were acquired by Salesforce and Tableau this last year. And that's one of those things where I'm really excited to see what comes in the future because they're now assistive device compatible, and getting those data stories into Tableau Cloud, the new cloud now, and eventually into the on-prem server environments is going to be huge for us. Being able to provide that dynamic language that is assistive device readable, so that they can really truly interact and visualize the data using their tools. That's something that I've been waiting for a very long time. So I know that it's a sales pitch. It's another add-on that's coming to the environment, but I really think it's going to address a lot of the accessibility challenges that we've had facilitating that information exchange. And I don't know, how much they went into it. I missed some of the presentations on the data stories, but the other piece that I'm really excited about is just generally for data literacy levels. We always run into how do we display the data and provide the detail that is important about the data with the data. And so, the attachment technical notes or the separate dashboard that has your huge text block on it, it's been a frustrating workaround we've had to deal with for quite a while. And so I'm really excited to make the data more accessible, both to people of all literacy levels and to people that have to use assistive devices to view our data. Like, it's just one more way we can get people to engage in a new way and think about data in a different way. Being able to see the visualization next to the text explanation for the data is huge for people that, struggle or find a roadblock in approaching data visualizations. So for me personally, I'm still like bouncing around about that.
Derek, any features you're excited about that were announced?
I was initially excited about the integration with R and Python and bringing in your own data models. I'm less excited that that's a new subscription feature, because that means that that's going to have to go into a budget that will be approved maybe next year, maybe in 2 years. So it doesn't matter really when Tableau releases it. It's if I'm in this role, it's going to be a while before I can actually use it. But I'll say the thought of being able to bring in your own models and retrain them from within Tableau, that's very exciting.
Mhm.
Yeah, and they've been really talking about that model builder functionality even during the last like fall Tableau conference that they had. So it's like they keep ramping up towards this feature. We haven't seen the release yet, but it seems to be getting closer and closer to game time.
It does. And I guess, maybe that's okay. I don't know what everyone else has an experience with version 1 releases of Tableau features. Seems like maybe version 2 is a better time to jump on board. So maybe this will all work out. Let's put a silver lining on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the other features that haven't been mentioned, I think the big one is that there's just this huge focus around Tableau Cloud, which if you haven't caught up with it, it's just Tableau Online rebranded as Tableau Cloud now. And you can definitely tell from just like the theme of the conversation and like what is being highlighted in every keynote and the functionalities that are being released, that Tableau Cloud continues to be that first and foremost priority, I would say, in terms of getting all the functionality out of the desktop app, start to scale in the cloud, get more just like connectivity with the broader Salesforce ecosystem. And yeah, like there's some cool things like being able to have multiple sites within Tableau Cloud. I'm going to have a hard time stop from saying Tableau Online all the time, but there's a lot of like feature parity that they're trying to get so that everyone eventually, it feels like Salesforce is really making that move towards everyone getting into the subscription-based cloud version of Tableau. And I don't even know during the keynote if they really even talked about Tableau Server, to be honest. It was all Tableau Cloud.
Yeah.
As a former admin, they usually don't give server a lot of love.
Yeah.
At TC.
Yep. Yeah, and I guess the other one that's worth mentioning that they demoed a little bit, I'm going to forget the name of it, but the new like kind of like relationship connections that will work better for the Salesforce model. I mean, it's escaping me what it's called, but basically like to be able to have those types of relations linked up in Tableau, I'll have to look up to see what they're called. If anyone remembers, let me know. But that'll help a lot with being able to connect directly to Salesforce data model and actually make it work. Because right now it's kind of a pain in the butt out of the box.
Did you talk with anyone from Salesforce about how they envision that working?
That connection?
Yeah.
I didn't particularly. I know that's probably one of their biggest, like, I know it's a big focus for them is to make that easier and easier. Like it's still not quite there without pain. That type of connection type will make it easier to play around with it because of how the data model for Salesforce is stood up with its objects behind the scenes. And it's a lot of like, what other competition in the space already has. So it's a much needed feature.
Yep.
Nice. We got some good recommendations in the chat too. Anyone else who like anyone else attend in person?
Well, great. Thank you, Derek, Luke, and Olivia for sharing. And it's really going to help focus those of us who could not attend or did not attend the virtual sessions, the ability to go and see some of the recordings and still learn from the conference that happened. Going to step forward now, and we're going to leave Luke in the spotlight, and I'll stop sharing my screen so Luke can share. Luke is a data strategist and founder with Building Modern Analytics for Data-Driven Teams, and I'll let you introduce yourself more and talk to us a little bit about tuning practices, which is something that really excites me. We're all looking for ways to make our dashboards and other visualizations more efficient to help our users out.
Yeah, sounds good. And remind me, I got what, 25, 30 minutes?
Yep, you have a half an hour, so that'd be great.
All right, perfect, cool. I'll try to stay on schedule here. So yeah, it's really nice to meet everyone while I get my presentation stood up. I'm going to attempt to do my hour of performance tuning best practices in about 30 minutes. So I'll go at a good clip here. I'm really hoping you guys can take away some good tips. I know there's a lot of times when we talk about performance improvement and speed optimization on Tableau, it's not a terribly exciting topic, but it's a very relevant topic because I'm sure a lot of us are building Tableau dashboards that aren't loading as fast as our stakeholders want them to. There's a lot of data out there. So it's a good idea just to know how to do performance recording. And then obviously what are things that I can do to make it faster. So hopefully you guys have at least like one dashboard that is loading super slow that you can have some good actionable takeaways from today's presentation. And of course I have my presentation ready and then my screen closes. What just happened? Let's try this again. Share screen, this one. Can we see it? Perfect. I don't know what happened. All right, so real quick about me. I'm the founder and managing director for Data Drive, located out of Minneapolis, but originally my roots are from Wisconsin. So this group is near and dear to me. I have been using Tableau for a little over 10 years at this point. I started and still lead today the Twin Cities Tableau user group. So I encourage you to check us out during our next multi-event for sure. I actually started my career out as a SAP BW data engineer. So why am I get so fascinated about performance optimization? Because so much of my early career in computer science and data engineering was all about optimizing for speed and data load. So this is just what I do and how I think about the world. And Tableau has just been really fun for me to grow into and get more of the data visualization aspect of it. And then I don't know if anyone knows what a one wheel actually is. It is pretty self-describing, but I tend to ride one of those things around. And just because as a suburban father of two, this is the only way I can really feel like I'm doing something dangerous in my life. So it's a lot of fun. So for the agenda, I'm going to go through just a high-level introduction to performance recording, just to make sure if you didn't know it exists, that you know it exists and how to go through it. A lot of people don't know how to like demystify or interpret the results that Tableau puts out. So I want to make sure you guys have an understanding of like how to read it so you can how to tackle it. And then from my like decade plus experience of doing Tableau optimizations, there are ways that my mind just thinks about how performance is broken down. And I'm hoping that I can share that mental model with you guys to get some actionable tips that you guys can take back to improve your dashboard performance. So we'll start out with a high level, like why does performance matter is because we live in a society of super fast consumption. Expectations are insanely high. You think about when people go to do a Google search, that Google has the ability to like search billions of websites and return back websites in less than a second. And so then when your business users come into your dashboard and you've got like 1,000 rows of sales data, it like takes 20 seconds to load it. Like there's a mismatch of expectations there. And so that is why every second of performance you can get is going to greatly improve the adoption of your dashboards. It is worth your time to figure out why things are running slow and try to squeeze every bit of performance out of it. There are a lot of consulting engagements I go in where like things are running at 5 seconds and my goal is to get it to 4 seconds. So people are really trying to speed things up. So what is performance recording? Within Tableau Desktop and Tableau Server, you have the ability to really just measure and begin to deeply analyze what are the key events that happen when people take action on a workbook. And so as you think about, Tableau has a lot of different steps that it has to go through on getting the results to do what it needs to do. It needs to filter data, it needs to run SQL statements, it needs to draw the data. There's a lot of steps in there, but every time that your user takes some kind of interaction, whether it's clicking a button, changing a filter, or clicking on a bar chart to make something else filter, that is going to create an event. And then performance recording allows you to measure how long that executes and the duration of that event. Pretty straightforward. Why it's important is because performance recording allows you to super like pinpoint where things are being a bottleneck. And then if you don't use performance recording, you're relying a lot on blind luck to tune the performance. And it's just a road that can take you forever if you don't really know where to look in the performance recording. So how do you start a performance recording? Within Tableau Desktop is probably the one route I would recommend first trying to do it. Even though I'll talk about how you can do it on server, Tableau Desktop is it's just an easier experience and a much more controlled experience. So within the help menu, within settings and performance, you've got a button called Start Performance Recording. Once you click it, it'll look like nothing happened, but really what's happening is behind the scenes, Tableau is starting to listen and capture the events of whatever you're doing on the dashboard. And then to stop the performance recording, you come right back to this menu to the exact same spot you started it and click Stop Performance Recording. And that's how the magic happens. In case you want to do it on Tableau server, there's 2 steps to it. One, you need to make sure your friendly Tableau server admin has allowed you to record performance on the server, because it adds a little bit of load. So there's maybe a reason why they don't, but a good server admin will likely turn this on for you guys. And then you just need to append this onto the URL of your dashboard that you're looking on in the browser, where it says record performance equals yes. And then that allows this fun new button that is the performance button to pop up. And it works the exact same way with starting and stopping the activities that you're doing on the dashboard. Server's a little bit more like, it's got a 3-step process. I would highly encourage to start with Tableau Desktop when you're starting to do this for the first time. And I already walked through a little bit, but at a high level, 5-step process is you open Tableau Desktop, you go to settings, performance, and start the performance recording. You do the stuff, whether it's filter or click or load data. You stop the performance recording, and then you wait about 3 to 4 seconds for Tableau to like capture that data, and then opens up a new Tableau workbook for you to analyze the performance. And so the second part of this presentation, we'll be talking through how to analyze that performance, because that a performance analyzer has been the same way for probably the last 8 years. I am shocked they haven't like updated the formatting on that thing. But yeah, it's pretty hopefully self-explanatory once we get into it. So some recording tips as you guys think through doing your first performance recording is I would highly recommend to stick to one simple action for each recording. I see that there's like a kind of separate school of thought in the Tableau space of like, what if I do a ton of activities and like look at all of the activities in aggregate? And I find that's really hard to like, it'll help you pinpoint what is obviously the longest lasting thing, because it'll consistently show up as like a thing that's slowing you down. But the way I think through it is I want to just do something that I know takes 20 seconds and then analyze where those 20 seconds were spent. And so I tend to just do one action, change one filter, click on one bar, and I stop the performance recording, because that allows me to really fine tune in on the important thing that I need to be focused on. One thing you'll see as we get into the performance recordings is that you want to focus on the duration of the task and worry less about the timestamps. There's like this field in there called timestamps that I think it just talks about the time of day. It looks like a really large number and you don't need to care about it. All you need to know is how long the elapsed time was. One thing to be careful of when you are particularly doing this on Tableau Desktop is the concept of caching, or just like data being loaded and sitting in your RAM or short-term memory of your computer. What caching happens is if you do a performance recording first, and then you're like, okay, I see that took 20 seconds. And then you do the exact same action for a second performance recording 5 minutes later, you might find that your dashboard magically loads in 5 seconds. And it's not because something happened, it's just because your computer is still saving off those short-term results. And so oftentimes when I'm doing performance recording, I want to have like 3 to 5 different use cases that I'm testing against, just to maybe switch a filter differently so I can avoid caching. If something magically loads really fast, don't think you solved the problem if you didn't do anything. It's probably just cached. The reason why I say to start on desktop versus server is because if it's slow on desktop, it's not going to magically be faster on server. There is this like theory that sometimes if you just throw it at server where there's a lot more hardware and a lot more RAM taking place, that'll magically be super fast. But you also have to consider that there's data movement and there's networking that goes on within the server. And so oftentimes, if you can make it fast on desktop, it'll be just as fast on server. But server isn't going to magically fix your problem. So make sure that you can get desktop moving fast before you just assume it's going to be fast on server, because server likely has more RAM. It doesn't play out that way. And then if you guys get super fancy with this, is sometimes like if it is fast on desktop and slow on server, then server recording will allow you to start quantifying any kind of like network and load distribution or firewall impact of a company. That is when you're getting into like super advanced performance recording where you're really trying to squeeze every second of performance. Don't worry about this one right away. Oh yeah, and another one, just for a bonus tip. Tableau sometimes does this thing called query fusioning. It sounds super fancy, but Tableau is already creating a bunch of customized SQL behind the scenes For those who've been using Tableau, like, you know that we don't often get a chance to go in and change the SQL that it's creating. I mean, that's the magic for the users, but for technical people, that can be super frustrating. So just being aware that sometimes worksheets will like figure out that we're like 80% the same data. So then Tableau will make the decision to fuse those two queries together. And so only one of the worksheets will like be looking like it's pulling a lot of data to try to be more efficient. But if you get super into analyzing these queries, you'll be like, why is it requesting this other field? It's not on this worksheet. It's because it's probably doing query fusioning and trying to be smart about sending less SQL statements to your database. All right. So getting oriented around just the basic view of the performance recording, this is what most likely the performance workbook will look like when you open it up. It has 3 different sections to it. The performance summary up top will show you what event happened when. And so this tells you like what workbook, what dashboard, what worksheet, and then how long each event took. And this is where that x-axis of time, don't worry about that because it's just like the time of day. It's more about the length of the bars, the duration of the event. That's more important here. But that first visualization tells you really the schedule of the, it's kind of like the project schedule of loading the query. It just works its way through it. The second one is actually a really interesting view because it'll tell you how long did the event actually take. So this is a bar chart that, you know, very simply tells you how long some of these actions took. It is to be expected that probably your top 5, your top 10 will be these green bars for executing query, because by and large, a lot of your problems will be because you are asking for too much data, or your data source is too slow, or there's too much complicated calculations that it's taking forever to pull that data in. And so executing query, it's pretty common for those to be the top 5 or 6 reasons. It is interesting to look at this because oftentimes what I find is that there's like 1 or 2 queries that are super long, and then the rest are like really slim. So really you can focus on just getting those 1 or 2 sped up, and then it can solve the rest of it. And I'll talk a little bit more visually like what that looks like. But in general, I want to find the ones that are taking forever and then really start to dissect what's going on there. And then the bottom piece is it will be empty by default, but that's where it shows the query. And when you click on any of these bar charts about executing query, is when Tableau will actually spit out its auto-created SQL in a giant kind of like really messy like XML type document. And then I'll talk about how you can take that text into your favorite text editor and then start to analyze why did Tableau build the SQL statement the way it did. All right, so if you're still with me, we are on to section 2 about interpreting performance results and analyzing how you can make your dashboards faster. So I talked through some of these in a high level, but let's go through the 3 visuals and talk about what I'm looking for. So the first one is that the timeline, like I mentioned, it's an overall Gantt view, a kind of project timeline of how the dashboard loading steps took place. This gives you an idea of task dependencies. And you'll see that Tableau often has a way of thinking about that. It wants to grab all the data, calculate all the data, and then draw all the data. And so oftentimes you start to see this project schedule, you can see these 3 different phases that start to play out of, I'm gonna grab all the data, gonna calculate it, and then draw it. And like I mentioned, you don't really need to worry about the x-axis because time just means like time in seconds since you started the performance recording. It doesn't matter. Focus on the bar length or the duration of the task. That's what you care about. Events. So you can pinpoint the top 1 to 5 events. Those are the ones that are going to be the obvious candidates for optimization. If you're trying to solve for like all 30 of them, it's not really worth your time. The juice is worth the squeeze on the top 5, especially the top ones that are by far the longest. When I look at these performance recordings, I would try to go after these first 3 queries because I know if I can get those down to a second shorter, I can get this whole dashboard to run a second faster. And so those are the candidates that I'm going after. I'm assuming that executing query is going to be the longest running ones. If I see any other colored bar up here, then I'm going to probably dig into that because that might be just a really weird calculated field or some kind of weird like sorting mechanism. And so if all of these top 5 or top 10 aren't green bars, then I'm really going to be questioning like, what are we doing that's so complicated that it's taking longer than just pulling in millions of records? And then, like I said, just be mindful of query fusioning and combined filters showing up in your SQL statement. And then the last one of the 3 visuals is just inspect the auto-generated query. And so this is going to be like that ugly mess of SQL that Tableau gets to auto-generate for people. This is like really the magic and secret sauce of Tableau, right? Is that we don't have to write the SQL on the fly like this. And not that anyone here would write it like this to begin with, but this is why it works. And you want to like click on any of the longest running bars and then grab this whole text. You can literally Control C or Control V or copy it out of like the underlying data, whatever works for you. And then make sure you get it into whatever your favorite text editor would be that has some kind of SQL syntax highlighter. So that Notepad++ or Atom or Sublime, like any of these text editors or IDEs that'll allow you to like really highlight where the SQL statements are. Because oftentimes these SQL statements are going to be hidden at the bottom of this giant text field. And so a lot of it will be gibberish, and then at the bottom will be like SQL that you can really start to understand. And the things that I'm looking for when I'm looking at this really, really messy SQL statement is not to try to dissect the whole thing, but just understand what fields are being selected, the select clause, and then from where am I selecting to figure out if I have any kind of complex joins that I'm not, or I might have like missed or I'm not considering. Because then if either I'm the DBA or I have a friend that's the database admin, I can go back and figure out, is there a more efficient way that we could join this? And potentially there's ways to optimize that, or at least put like indexes in place to help optimize that behind the scenes. All right. And then the one thing that I would typically show, but I would show how to like build this, but with like the time and material, I just didn't have time to like switch between presentation and workbook. But this is like the custom Gantt that I like to build when I'm doing these performance recordings. And really all I do is take that first visualization, this guy, and I just move a lot of the pills around on that worksheet to build out what is essentially a Gantt chart. And the way I think about this is that you can kind of see how Tableau has to think through this entire process. Is at the beginning, there's a purple, which is about trying to like figure out the XML of the file. And then you hit all of the green executing query lines. And so you can see that the longest part of this whole process is that Tableau is waiting until it's able to calculate all of those queries. And so that's the longest part of this project plan, is executing queries. And then of course, like there's kind of an interesting separate green query for bar retailers that worksheet might have like an LOD or some kind of fancy filter on it or sort on it that is causing Tableau to have to like re-query data to get it a certain way. And then next it's going to move into like generally these blue bars, and the blue bars are where it's like creating calculated fields. So if you have really long blue bars here, that's where I'm like looking for, are we looking at table calcs? Do we have some kind of funky calculated fields that aren't terribly efficiently written? And then the last piece is all of these like yellow bars, which is around drawing the view. And so if you're one of those people that are like recreating spreadsheets or have a scatter plot with millions of points on there, you're going to have really long yellow bars that are going to slow down the performance. But at the end of the day, that feels like there's a lot of things that we could fix. And the reason why I love this view is because you can start to quantify like, where is it worth my effort to go like fix something? Like if I do have a really like large table, I can see that it's taking me roughly 0.4 seconds to draw that thing. And is it really worth my time to go like negotiate on how to do that scatter plot differently? Or is it more productive for me to go have a conversation around like, how much data do we actually need for this data source to pull off the data that it needs? And that allows you to have a little bit more prioritization efforts on like, what thing do I want to optimize? Because Tableau will always kind of like run, it's like very much like a project plan, a critical path. It's only going to run as fast as it can to finish the last step prior to it. So you want to oftentimes get the longest running query shortened, and then the whole thing runs faster. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm doing a lot of this, so you guys, it has to make sense. All right, and this is usually where I would demo, but I'm not going to have time to like flip between it. So let's move into the practical takeaways. All right, so I've kind of like been using my hands to suggest like where I think about all the different steps of dashboard loading, but in my head, this is really how I think about dashboard loading within Tableau. There's really 3 steps that I think about. It's retrieving data, and then it's calculating data, and then it's drawing data. These lovely percentages that I have on there are in no way scientific, but it's based off my experience. The percentage of time there's a problem with one of these steps in all of the dashboards that I help optimize. And so another way to read that is like 60% of the time, it's likely that your dashboard's running slow is because you're grabbing too much data or you're grabbing data inefficiently. That should surprise no one, because that's often where we're having a ton of conversations with stakeholders about like, how do we speed this up, and stop asking me for all this data if you're never going to look at that level of granularity. There is some parts of it that'll be like calculating data. So like things like table calculations or any kind of like sorts, people sometimes don't even realize they're sorting data a certain way, and it's actually really expensive. And so sometimes it's worth looking at calculating data. And then drawing data is a little bit more self-explanatory. Like I can usually look at a dashboard and say like, this table is really expensive, this scatter plot's really expensive. But for the most part, like doing those things aren't going to make it magically faster. It'll maybe shave off a few seconds at the end, but it's not going to really change your 20-second dashboard down to 10 seconds just by fixing a table, unless it's a giant table. And then to like overlay Luke's way of thinking about these three stages, I kind of like was talking about this, but this is how I think about when I look at these things, is how I'm segmenting up the different things that I have an opportunity to optimize. And so this particular dashboard is where I would really be focused on what data are we grabbing, and then particularly for the really long running 2 to 3 queries that I need to look at, I need to go look at those worksheets to figure out what data is it asking for. All right. So key takeaways is loading times can make or break your Tableau dashboard adoption. It is well worth your effort to make sure that you can squeeze every bit of time out of it, because the difference between your stakeholders waiting 2 seconds or 5 seconds will truly, like I've seen this happen in real life many times. Like if people have to wait 5 seconds, they don't have patience for it, and you will ruin your adoption if you don't work to optimize that in some way. Every second counts when you're doing this stuff, especially on these big releases that you're giving out to people, busy executives. You don't want to get it wrong on the first time. Otherwise, it's really hard to regain that trust. Performance recording does do a really great job to provide like really tactical advice on where to fine tune versus just trying to like hope that you can reduce the data and it'll magically start working. So really highly encourage you to look at performance recording as that option. Luke's recommendation is just to stick with a single action when recording, because it just keeps it super simple for you to analyze everything that I just described to you. You can know exactly what it was filtering by, and it'll make it easier for you to dissect the SQL queries that Tableau auto-generated. It's a lot like a project schedule with a critical path that your dashboard's only going to load as fast as your slowest event. And so work on optimizing your slowest event and the whole project runs faster. And the last one that's worth mentioning is you can't performance tune bad requirements. So if your end users are asking for all of the data in all of the world, and you're not doing due diligence with like pushing back on why it's important, why do we need to bring in every minute of every invoice of every single customer down to their street address, just because we feel like it's more accurate when we've got billions of rows that we're analyzing, like start to push back on those requirements, because you can only performance tune so much. If we can change the conversation about what are we trying to do with this data, that's going to be way more useful than trying to tune within Tableau really bad requirements. And I want to make sure I leave time for questions. So hopefully this was helpful. If you got questions, I've got my email down below. As you can see, like jam out on this stuff. It's a weird hobby of mine. But happy to answer any questions you guys might have about performance recording.
Hi, Luke. I've got a quick question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So what caught my eye was the sorting. Sorting could be a cause of slow dashboards. Can you give me an example? Like I'm thinking it's not the automatic like ascending, descending button that's going to be causing you problems. Is it going to be like a calculation that you've created or a nested field, or what do you see happening with the sorts that affects performance?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually kind of like even the default ascending, descending on a really large data set, I've seen it show up as like a slow performing action, because like it can't, sometimes when you're like, especially when you're sorting off of a like level of detail calc or something that requires Tableau to like calculate it after it figures out its result set, that can cause that sort to like say, all right, I got to recalculate and then I got to figure out which one's the highest to lowest. But even if you're trying to sort millions of records, your default Tableau sort ascending might actually be slow performing for you. And so oftentimes what I like to do is like, I'll find the worksheet that's running long. And if I can find one of those blue events where it's like, it's not a calculated field, but maybe there's just something like, I'm going to go look at that worksheet and see if there's any random sorts that somebody put on there. And sometimes I see these weird things where like people have accidentally put a sort on something that's in the detail shelf. And like, it's really not doing anything for the visualization. And Tableau is doing this extra math that we would have never known unless we did a performance recording.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Luke, I have a question too. I am curious about what your recommendations would be for integrating this performance recording piece in your dashboard development lifecycle. Like, what point would you recommend taking a look at these recordings? Any policies or anything in terms of like, from your recommendation in terms of managing my server environment, for example? I don't do a lot of the dashboard development, but a lot of them have run into issues down the road because they've skipped this step. And I'm just kind of wondering about how to integrate that in to our management of our content.
Yeah, for a lot of the clients that I work with, we usually make a performance checklist or some kind of like publishing checklist where I don't mind if people wait until the end to start doing performance recording, because there's just the iterations of, we don't know what people are going to land on for the type of analysis. And sometimes like people need to go super deep on granular analysis to figure out how to bubble back up. And so I don't try to force people to do any kind of like tuning while they're like mid development. But there is definitely that point in a lot of the environments that I admin where I'm like, all right, you need to make sure that you go through this, like do a performance recording, prove to me that it loads less than 10 seconds and, you know, or even like 5 seconds. And if it loads more than that, you either have to give me a really good reason why the business is willing to accept that, or we have to work together to figure out recommendations on like, do you actually need this granularity? So to answer your questions, usually at the end of the development cycle, when they're about ready to publish, and they need to prove that it's either going to run fast or their users are aware that it's going to run slow. Because I think a lot of developers might assume like, oh yeah, they'll wait for it, but they won't.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, Luke, thanks for a great presentation. I do have a question. You mentioned very briefly, users who want to see everything. And, one of the things we struggle with is, as we work with customers, we work with the business, trying to help them understand the value of using something like an extract to speed things up. We get people who say, yep, I need the last 10 years data, and I need it as of 5 minutes ago. It needs to pull live from the server. What type of tools or arguments do you find are useful when working with the business, saying, if it's a long-term report, you probably don't need it refreshed every few minutes, versus something that's live on the production floor. Well, I need the last hour's data.
Yeah. Definitely. There's kind of two parts to that question. One is like the extract versus live conversation of like, unless they have a real reason to have real-time data, then I'm going to try to see if we can test to see if we can put it into a hyper or an extract file that, like, if you don't care about yesterday's data or last hour's data, let's try to put it into a hyper file and see if it makes it faster. What's great about Tableau is that you can easily flip between the two. So you can test out performance recording on both to see what kind of benefits you're going to get. But I think a larger part of your question, outside of just like helping people decide if they need an extract or a live, because that is a little bit of a performance discussion more than anything. The other piece of it is like being able to have those conversations of like, I know you want all the data, you want it all in this table because it's a spreadsheet that you're used to. But I think a lot of times, like what we miss out on as Tableau like developers and creators is to like show them the power of these like filterable, like interactive dashboard actions that you can build on a Tableau dashboard. And a lot of times, like if I can just really simply build some bar charts that show themes, and then as they click on it, it allows them to kind of build this other really expensive spreadsheet on another tab, then I'm allowing them to kind of build their own custom export. And instead of having them sit in their spreadsheet world where like in the spreadsheet world, I own all the data and I filter it sitting there. But in the Tableau world, there's an easier way for me to get to the answer and then narrow down the data set somewhere else. And then I can take that and do my analysis on it. Like I want to give people tables because people love to like look and feel and touch the data, but I want to get them into a visual world of like, there's ways you can identify trends you've never even thought about. And I want to like prototype that for you And those are the conversations I'm trying to get to, is really get to a whiteboarding exercise to show the art of the possible there.
Great, and thank you. And we do have time for one more question if someone else has a question.
All right.
Well, great. Thank you, Luke, for a great presentation. We're going to move forward now and meet Sarah. Sarah is with the Wisconsin Department of Administrations. She's a senior selection and assessment specialist in the Bureau of Merit Recruitment and Selection. She's going to talk about utilizing the DataFam feedback loop for a personal dashboard. And it sounds really interesting, as we had talked about this earlier, is cooking my way through an entire cookbook. So welcome, Sarah, and I'll let you give yourself more of an introduction.
You're muted, Sarah.
Sarah, you're still muted. I'm not sure if I can unmute. I don't believe so.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's great.
Great, thank you. Well, thank you, everyone. Great to be with you here today. My name is Sarah, and I work with the Wisconsin Department of Administration. And I work in human resources. I use Tableau as part of my job, but it's not all of my job. And about 2 years ago, I was looking to get more connected with the Tableau community. I started attending the Tableau user groups, like this Madison one and the Milwaukee one, and getting more involved. And from there, an opportunity for mentoring came up, and I was paired with an excellent mentor, Michelle Freeman. You might know her from the Twitter DataFam, and she really helped guide me on getting on Twitter. I didn't know there was such a Tableau presence on Twitter, and it was such a valuable way to get feedback from people, to get to know them, to share ideas. And it's really been rewarding for me. And that led to getting involved in more community projects. And I did a couple of them, like Makeover Monday, where you take a data visual and see what improvements you would make to it. There's also one called Back to Viz Basics, where it's short-term challenges where you get to try new things with different data sets and think creatively about them. But I needed one where it was more of a, how can I bring my own data set to this? How do I get started with a personal project? Why couldn't I do a personal project and really get creative about how I use Tableau and challenge myself to do more? And I was just kind of looking at ways to do that. And from there, I found that kind of led me to the Feedback Loop community project. And I wanted to share it today because it's been a great fit for me, and it might be a great fit for you too. I found through online research that it was started in about 2019. by Joshua Smith, and they wanted to create a community project that was focused on the look and feel of data visuals, and giving and receiving feedback about the aesthetics of data viz. So you get practice on giving feedback, but you also get so much valuable feedback and perspectives from this small group, and you get to share your work. And it's not about like, well, here's how you do it in this specific technique and blah blah blah. It's so much more about like, well, how does this make you how does this visual make you feel? Is it engaging? What kind of tone does it have? Where do your eyes go when you're viewing this visual? So with it was great for this personal project that I challenged myself to do, to cook all the recipes in in a cookbook that I have. So I'm like, I think this could be a good way to do a personal project. So that's what I joined in on. So over here is a picture of the first published draft, and the feedback loop. It's a small group of about 10 people, where you get structure on there's a timeline on when to submit your visual, and when to submit your feedback, and when to submit a revised version. But there's also flexibility and realistic expectations too. When the timeline for our cohort overlapped with Iron Viz submissions, they adjusted the timeline because Michelle Freeman and Nicole Klassen, the facilitators of it, they know that you're human, and that data viz and Tableau isn't your whole life. So there's that flexibility there too. And what I really liked about it is they meet you where you are, and that makes it useful for beginners and for experienced users to get feedback on their submissions. You can even submit a past visual that you've done. It doesn't have to be a personal project. It doesn't have to be your own data. So what did I learn? I learned that getting feedback and a fresh set of eyes on a visual is so valuable. You can't really replace that because you get so used to a personal project and the look and feel of it, and that new perspective can be so helpful. And feedback shouldn't be about you. When you're giving feedback, it's not about you. It's about the person who designed it. Put yourself in their shoes. And when you're receiving feedback, it's not about you either. You are not your work. You are, it's not personal. And we're all continuously learning how to tell a story with data. And I'm proud of this revised version. I'm grateful to the cohort that helped me revise it. Their feedback was so helpful. But I also know that 6 months, a year from now, there's going to be a ton of things I'd do differently with it, and that's growth. That's how it goes. And by having a role in giving feedback, as well as receiving feedback, I really learned that all of us are responsible for building the kind of Tableau community we want to see, where it's not just a spectator sport, as cheesy as that sounds. It's you get a lot out of it by participating and being the kind of participant with sharing feedback and tips that is valuable to others. So, and I hope you're also thinking about ways to participate, ways to connect more with the Tableau community, and ask yourself, why not me? I reached out to Michelle and Nicole, and they are doing signups for the summer cohort of the feedback loop will start soon. And so be looking on Twitter for that. Thanks for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for the presentation. It sounds really interesting and I'll definitely look into it. I'm pretty new to giving feedback. What is the rubric like?
Yeah, I was too. The rubric is 5 areas. It kind of open-ended questions of how do you feel looking at this viz? Do you know where to click? What is the tone of this viz? Are there other visuals that data vizzes that reminds you of that like might be useful to the creator of it? So it's open-ended questions that make it more like a conversation. So, and the process that the setup they use for the feedback loop is on Slack. So each person has their own like channel. So all your feedback that you receive is grouped together, which makes it nice to see common themes as you're making revisions.
Okay, thank you.
Nicole Klassen also has a blog post of lessons learned from the feedback loop that might be helpful too if you want more information on participating. So, yeah.
Well, thank you, Sarah, for a great presentation. And I think that's really useful to a lot of people like me, very introverted, who works within a group of introverts. And sometimes it's hard for us to seek out this type of feedback, and having a rubric to start to work with, I think will be very helpful as we reach out, whether it's in our personal lives or in our business lives, as we go out to the different business units for whom we prepare things. We're going to shift just a little bit and welcome Tammy Brown. Tammy is the lead data analyst with Telecommunications and a great friend of the Tableau users group here in Madison. Welcome, Tammy, and I'll let you share your screen and talk to us a little bit about Workout Wednesday. And for those of you who remember when Hyper was introduced at the Tableau conference several years ago, Tammy will pump you up.
Okay. Thank you, Rob, very much. Can everybody see my screen? Okay, yes. Cool. All right, cool. So I am here to talk about Workout Wednesday. This was supposed to be a presentation back in March, and I unfortunately got COVID, and I was unable to talk for more than a couple of minutes at a time, and I would lose my voice and start coughing, and it was just terrible. So the Madison Tug graciously gave me a pass to present at another time. So here I am, take 2 on June 7th. As Rob mentioned, I am a lead data analyst at TDS Telecom in Madison, but I work remote from my home in Janesville. I've been a Tableau user since 2018. Some of my interests are live country music. I'm so happy that live music is finally back. I was at 2 major concerts last month, and there's more planned for June, and I'm really excited about that. I'm a super fan of sports, especially the Badgers, Brewers, Bucks, Packers, and our local NAHL franchise here in Janesville, the Janesville Jets. I'm also an American Cancer Society volunteer and fundraiser for them. And the picture in the middle was when 2 of my passions were able to come together. We did a game worn live jersey auction. of Janesville Jets jerseys for an American Cancer Society fundraiser. So that was a ton of fun. I'm an empty nester. The handsome guy in the right in that picture is my son, Zach. He's 35, going to be almost 35. So he's been out of the house for a while. I'm a cat mom to Nacho and Queso, and that's usually how you find them. One of them laying on top of the other, beating up the other one. So that's Queso on the top and Nacho on the bottom. So what is Workout Wednesday? It was originally created in 2017 by a group of Tableau ambassadors. It is a weekly challenge to recreate data-driven visualizations. The challenge ranged from easy, and I'm going to say easier because I have yet to find an easy one, to really, really hard. Once the challenges are posted, they are there forever. So you can always pick and choose challenges based on what you'd like to learn or get better at. Each Wednesday, hence Workout Wednesday, a new challenge is released, and participants are asked to replicate the challenge that is posted as closely to the original challenge as possible. And when participants think they have it, they are encouraged to leave a link to their visualization, share it on Tableau Public, or post it on Twitter for others to enjoy. So how do you participate? First of all, bookmark the link to the Workout Wednesday site. And if somebody could drop that in the chat for me, that would be fabulous. It's www.workout-wednesday.com. Go to the site on Wednesday of any given week, and you'll find the new challenge. Or you can just browse through the Workout Wednesday site for past challenges. They're listed in reverse chronological order. So tomorrow's post will be the first one, and then you'll find last week's and the week before, and so on and so forth. And then recreate the solution on your own time. There's no time clock that's ticking. There's no one's timing you. No one's expecting a response. You just do it on your own time. Try to follow exactly the instructions given on the challenge. And if you get stuck, a solution walkthrough will be posted on Saturday. So the solution walkthroughs are saved to the original challenge. So if you are attempting an older challenge, the solution will be there for you. The walkthrough is usually in the form of a YouTube video, although I have seen some be posted in the form of a Twitter thread. You can also download the workbook from the posted challenge and reverse engineer it if you are really stuck, if the video wasn't helpful, if you're not a visual learner, if you're more of a hands-on learner. The posted challenge always has a downloadable version of the workbook, so you could reverse engineer it if you are really stuck. When you're done, share your creation, but always give inspiration credit if you post the challenge publicly to Tableau Public, Twitter, etc. And I will show at the end what I mean by that. So let's walk through one of my favorites. This one was actually week 35 from Workout Wednesday in 2021. I liked what the chart looked like. It had practical applications for me in my job. And so it was one of the fun ones. And this is one where I had to reach out for help. So I can show you how I did that and how helpful the community actually is. This was a challenge from Luke Stanky, whose challenge was to create a modified dot plot comparing sales for the current year 2021 with the prior year 2020. Within these challenges, the data source will often be the Superstore data set that comes with every Tableau install. Almost all the time, I shouldn't say almost all the time, quite often they are. If it's not Superstore data, there will be a link in the data set section where the publicly available data set can be found. And again, almost always that's somewhere out on Data World. But what did we need to do this time? We had a dashboard requirement to be the size 700 by 800. It was just one sheet, plot the 2021 and 2020 sales by subcategory, color the years, 2021 would be blue, 2020 would be red, show the subcategory and total sales for 2021 in the header, label the year-over-year change on the 2021 dot, and match the formatting of the original posted challenge. So it seemed simple. So I decided that I needed to create some calculated fields. So in the interest of time, if you have questions about the calculations, I can answer those offline because this is really just about how to do tips for doing a workout Wednesday exercise. So if you could take those questions offline, that would be great. But I needed a sales for the current year. So I set up a calculation that was going to give me only the 2021 sales. I needed a sales for prior year. So I did a calculation that would give me the sale, that would sum the sales, that would grab the sales, identify the sales only for the last year. And then I needed a calculation that would sum the sales of the current year for the 2021 sales. I needed a delta. So a true false delta are the sales for the current year less than the sales for the prior year. And then I needed, this was my delta label that would show the percent change from 2021 to 2020. So then I built the thing. So let me switch over. So this was what I ended up building. So I thought about doing the actual building as part of this presentation, but I didn't want to run out of time. So I will just explain what I did. I put sum of sales on columns, sum of sales on columns again, and did a dual axis with that. I synchronized that axis, put the subcategory on rows, and the 2021 sales on rows. So you can see where all of that is the first step. Then after I did that, I added the filters, the year of the order date, the sales current year, sales previous year are all in my filters. Then on the marks card for the first sum sales, the year of order date are on color and detail, and and I assigned a bar as the mark type. So bar, year of order date is on color, year of order date is also on detail. So that's where the bars are coming from. Then I needed to do on the marks card for the second sum sales, I just left it as automatic. I wanted circle, that was the automatic mark. I put the delta on color, which is a true false filter, and it would be colored blue if it was false, red if it was true. The year of the order date on detail, and then the delta label on text with a table calculation of compute using specific dimensions, year of order date, and then the sort order on specific dimensions. So I built my chart, I built my view, I had it exactly the way I wanted it, but I had these red bars, and in the solution that was posted, there weren't any red bars. It was just red circles and blue circles. And I forgot one thing. I added the title, I formatted the column headings, and I felt good about my work. So I felt good about it, but I could not figure out how to get rid of these red lines. Everything that I tried was to no avail. So I got stuck. I couldn't figure out how to make the color be just on the circles and not on the bar. This is what I had, and this is what I was trying to do. So I tried to format the marks. I tried to redo what I had already done, thinking, the definition of insanity is repeating over and over what you've already done and getting the same results. I was driving myself absolutely insane. I even reverse engineered. I downloaded Luke's workbook, and I reverse engineered the original posted challenge. I looked at his calculations, that they were slightly different than mine in some cases. And so I made mine look exactly like his, and still I was unsure, puzzled, lost, confused, unclear, baffled. I was ready to just throw it in. I was done. So I resorted to going directly to the source via Twitter PM to see what I was doing wrong. So I reached out to Luke on Twitter, didn't know him from Adam before this. So I just sent him a message, and I said, I'm working on the Workout Wednesday 2021 week 35 challenge. I have the correct 2021 sales in the text, but the bar charts are showing both 2020 and 2021. I downloaded your solution, but I didn't find where I went wrong. How do I get rid of these bars but keep the circles? And I will send a link to the dashboard from Tableau Public, which is what I did. Told him that I changed the calcs and stuff to match his in an effort to figure out where I went wrong. Waited a few hours and he got back to me and said, yes, you need to unstack the marks in analysis, stack marks off, then you should basically have it. Oh, I didn't even think about that. Problem solved, perhaps. So I went back to my dashboard and I went under analysis, stack marks. I turned them off. It's not working. There we go. Turn them off and voila, that was exactly what I wanted from my dashboard. So I was stuck. I don't know that I would have figured that out on my own. I was flipping around in this dashboard, in this worksheet, trying to make these bars go away. I had never thought to look there. So I really appreciated the help that I got from Luke just by sending him a personal message on Twitter. He was happy to help. So then that was my final dashboard or my final worksheet within the dashboard. So I built it into a dashboard. I did the size that was requested. I made sure that the headings at the top were correct the way that he had it. You match the formatting as precisely as you can to the original. So that's what I tried to do. My marks are all where the marks are supposed to be, indicating a positive change if the blue mark is to the right, a negative change if the red mark is to the right. So that was exciting. Added a caption for what it was. Wow 2021, week 35. And here's where I talk about including the inspiration. So inspired by Luke Stanky really means that you took a dashboard that someone else did, you replicated it, you're posting it out on Tableau Public, but you're giving the inspiration credit to the person that created it. So here, and then also when I published it to Tableau Public, when you publish things to Tableau Public, there is a details box that you can fill out. So I included the name, that it was a Workout Wednesday challenge in week 35. The title of it was How Much Change Has Occurred. And again, giving the full attribution credit to the full inspiration credit to Luke. So you always want to make sure that you do that when you're doing these challenges and publishing things back to Tableau Public. Then optionally, you can also submit your participation to the WOW 2022 participation tracker. And I didn't even know that this existed. So I'm going to go back and put all of my things into this tracker because it's kind of fun to see what everybody else is doing and how they compare. But it will collect your response and add it to the participant overview. So the whole form isn't here, but there are Power BI challenges as part of Workout Wednesday in addition to Tableau. So it'll ask you, is this a Tableau Public one or a Power BI one? And then there's your Twitter handle and other things that are down at the bottom that are cut off. It'll add it to the participant overview, which is viewable by overview. So it'll tell you how many submissions have been submitted year to date. Power BI, 273 of them. Tableau is knocking it out of the park with 598. This was as of last night, actually. You can see a leaderboard. So who has submitted the most challenges? So Zach Fan is killing it doing Power BI and Tableau at the same time. And then, or you can look at it by participant. And since I haven't put any of mine in, I couldn't find mine. So I grabbed our friend Adam Miko, who used to be part of the Madison Tug. So it looks like he's done quite a few. So it's just fun. It's a fun way to track what people are doing and how many challenges people are doing. And like I said, I haven't put any of my work into this yet, but I am going to go back through and update that just as a fun way to track things. So I thank everybody for letting me present on Workout Wednesday. This is one of the community events that I really like to do. It's something I can do on my own time. It's something that I can use to sharpen my own skills or to learn new things and to see. I always find someone did something better than I do it, and I learn of a new or more efficient way of doing things. So my email address is there on LinkedIn. I'm Tammy Brown on LinkedIn, but the actual link has Tammy Sue Brown, and then on Twitter I'm at T Brown was taken. So I can take questions, or otherwise I just invite everybody to participate on Workout Wednesday. It's a great way to sharpen your skills.
Well, thank you, Tammy, for a really great presentation.
You're welcome.
And, you know, some of the things you mentioned just really hit home. You know, as a lifelong learner, you know, I try to learn new things. And one of the things that, you know, we all learn over time as we grow and mature is that, you know, you can read things, you can see things, but when you actually have to do it yourself, you learn these things. And you'll probably think, you know, in everything you do, the next time you make a bar and bar chart, you know, the first thing you're going to say, they don't line up. I know that I had to turn
Yep.
off stack marks to make a bar and bar, you know.
Yep.
And I saw in some of the calculations you wrote, the zero null function. You know, the first time you struggle with that, and then you realize, oh, I can't do a calculation on a null where I have to do math. I've got to turn that into a zero. And it's different in different applications, and you learn those subtle things by doing. And it really brings some of that home. And, you know, thank you for that presentation, and
You're welcome.
helping us to find another source to learn.
Yes, you're welcome.
And really, as a follow-up to this from our Tableau user group leadership team, we want to put a call out to speakers. You know, we've seen some great presentations today, and we know that there are more of you out there that have some great content to share. And we're always looking for new and different ways to look at things and new content. And just want to reach out if you have anything that you'd like to share with us. It doesn't have to be a long presentation. Now, 5 and 10-minute presentations are great. Longer presentations are welcomed. So always looking for somebody there. And now we'd like to turn it over to who's doing this. I think it's Olivia who's doing this. It is Olivia. Olivia, we're going to have some giveaways to people who have participated in the chat today for the Tableau store. And I've grabbed a couple screenshots here. You don't actually have to go to the Tableau store at the Tableau conference. Your gift certificate will come in a few days as an email.
Yes, thank you, Rob. We are very excited today. We have a $50 and $25 gift card. So I randomly selected names based on those who participated today. And I will be reaching out to you via chat here shortly to collect your email address and get those gift cards to you. But our $50 winner is Jen McElroy. And I should probably also say that I'm terrible at pronouncing names, so forgive me if I mispronounce yours as we go through this list. And then we have a $25 gift card going to Bruce Landay and a $25 gift card going to Wendy Ware. Oh, yay, I got it right. You guys, that never happens. So good. Okay, I will be reaching out to you all privately to get your contact information, but congratulations to our winners, and to those who did not win today. Make sure you're participating in chat moving forward, and you'll be entered in to win some of our giveaways. With that, I will turn it back over to you, Rob.
Great, and thank you. We do have some upcoming events just a few days away here on June 16th. That should be next Thursday. There's a happy hour in Milwaukee for the Milwaukee Tableau Users Group. It's an in-person event. So any of you who are available, check out Milwaukee Tug. You can Google Milwaukee Tug and Tableau, and events will come up. It's really easy to find. We do have a Wisconsin virtual Tableau Users Group, which is really a combination of the Madison and Milwaukee groups that was created during the pandemic, and it's grown since then. What we do is we alternate, every third month between Madison, Milwaukee, and the Wisconsin group. So they have an event coming up in July. Milwaukee has their normal event, which is going to be virtual in August. In September, we come back to our Tableau Users Group, and at this point, we're hoping to have that in person. We will see. It depends on what happens between now and then. And the events just keep cycling. Our December Madison event, we do not have a date for yet, but we will have that soon. And I'd like to thank everything in our leadership team, for all the work that you've done, and our presenters today and all the others who help us out to make this Tableau users group happen. Got a slide here, and we can drop some of these into the chat also. Maybe you just want to take a quick screenshot or a snap with your phone with convenient links. Otherwise, Uncle Google is really good if you put in Tug, a city name, and the word Tableau. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Olivia to send us all to breakout rooms for some semi-virtual networking.
And thank you, Rob. Excellent job leading today. It was a great meeting, and really thank you again to all of our presenters. You all are amazing, and I love learning from you and getting excited of catching your enthusiasm. So I'm going to assign breakout rooms automatically. Feel free to talk about anything that's related to Tableau or network, or just catch up on how your week has been going. If anybody has any issues, just reach out to me directly via chat and I will get you reassigned to a different room. All right, have fun. Thank you all for attending today.